Thanks to football, Green Bay is one of the most well-known cities in Wisconsin. It's also the oldest, with a colorful history even before the fame of the Green Bay Packers. In this video, we're going to see many of Green Bay's most interesting historical places, and through them, the early history of the city. Green Bay's location at the mouth of the Fox River was a key site on the original superhighway through the state, the Fox and Wisconsin Rivers Waterway. These rivers gave a near-continuous water route connecting Lake Michigan to the Mississippi River. This made Green Bay a natural gathering spot. In the 1600s, French traders used the site of Green Bay to rendezvous with Native Americans and conduct the business of the fur trade. Although the French didn't stay and build homes at first, they did build a fort in 1717. It was located across from the East River, with one job: defending against the Fox Indians, with whom the French warred for 2 decades. The person known as Wisconsin's first permanent white settler, who was actually half white, half Ottawa, was Charles de Langlade, who in 1745 built a permanent fur trading post on what is now the inconspicuous intersection of Washington and Doty. De Langlade's post became the beginnings of a small French settlement, and it was de Langlade's leadership and reputation as a warrior that more than anything helped keep the peace between the settlement and the Native Americans. The oldest surviving building built in Wisconsin is from this time, a cottage built by a fur trader in 1776, which for this area might as well be the Jurassic era. It's the only building in Wisconsin that predates 1800. France eventually lost its claim to this part of America, and in the 1820s, Americans from New England started coming to Wisconsin with a mission to become rich by building America's next megacity. One fact would have hindered American settlers, however. French and Indians who had actually sided against them in previous wars were still living in Green Bay. So, America sent a military force to the old French fort, rebuilding it and renaming it Fort Howard. The soldiers were led by Zachary Taylor, a future general of the Mexican-American War and U.S. president. The fort's presence gave the settlers the encouragement they needed to move into the land of Wisconsin. English-speaking Green Bay was founded by Daniel Whitney, who created the town of Navarino just south of the East River. At the time, many people thought it was too risky of a place to build a city. It was swampland and covered with trees, but Whitney thought it was a great spot. It was right across from the fort and bordered by 2 different rivers. Well, it quickly proved to be successful and is now Green Bay's downtown. Navarino's early rival was the town of Astor, just south of Navarino. The two quickly decided to join forces, however, in order to have more political strength against their common rival, De Pere. So in 1838, they merged into one town, the borough of Green Bay. Morgan Martin was another investor to come to Green Bay. Martin invested heavily in the Fox-Wisconsin waterway, believing that Green Bay's position on the waterway basically guaranteed that it was going to be the most prominent city in Wisconsin. Unfortunately for Martin, the construction of railroads across Wisconsin very quickly made the waterway obsolete, and at the same time propelled Milwaukee, not Green Bay, to become Wisconsin's most important economic city. But he did at least leave us with his historic home, known as Hazelwood. If a house has a name, you know it's important. This is where the Wisconsin State Constitution was written, and it's also the childhood home of Morgan Martin Jr., the Victorian incarnation of Aaron Rodgers. Suburbs and outer neighborhoods developed around the central city, such as Fort Howard on the west side, and the neighborhood of Tank. The 1776 cottage seen earlier was purchased by Mr. Tank, a candidate for the throne of Norway. Well, rather than go for the throne, he instead came to Green Bay and founded a mini-communism populated by Moravians, who eventually fled his autocratic leadership and went off to found the village of Ephraim in Door County. French-Canadian fur traders still lived in Green Bay, and although nominally Catholic, they didn't have a permanent church. This finally changed in 1831, with the founding of St. John the Evangelist, the oldest continuous parish in Wisconsin. Its original church burned down in 1847, and so to keep costs down, an existing building was purchased for the Catholics of Green Bay, a Methodist church in Astor, on the current site of St. John's. Known as the French Church after its predominantly French-speaking congregation, it too burned down and was replaced by a church that burned down and was replaced with this, a gorgeous Romanesque church. The fur trade, Green Bay's original reason for existence, ended in the 1840s. Luckily, the forests provided a resource of a different type, timber. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be full of Green Bay's most impressive Victorian landmarks.